What if the secret to thriving as a neurodistinct person wasn't about fitting in, but about rethinking the rules entirely? So, us, right? So, today's guest has built his life, work, and advocacy on one powerful idea: normalize no normal. I love that. Is that not great? So, welcome back to Beyond Chronic Burnout, the talk show for autistic women, ADHD women, and the helping professionals who support us. I'm your host, Carole Jean Whittington, and today I am joined by Dr. Adam Dutch Hazlett, Fulbright Specialist, Professor, Disability Inclusion Expert, and creator of the Nachos podcast. And I absolutely adore this guy. He is just fabulous. You're going to love him. He's so much fun. We've gotten to do a couple things together, some conferences and program that I put on this summer he was a part of. And I'm telling you, he just lights me up. He's a total sparkle. Dutch blends deep humanitarian insights with practical strategies for building truly inclusive communities. His work invites us to shift from how do I adapt to how do we create spaces where everyone belongs from the start. I mean, right? Novel concept, how brilliant. But in this conversation today that I'm having with him, we're going to be exploring his PB&J framework for neuroinclusion and why it's delicious for more than one reason. The personal transformation he experienced post-identification and how it's changed his life. And a groundbreaking conference happening this October in Dearborn, Michigan, that's all about neurodivergent empowerment. And I can't wait for him to share about this because if you're in the area, you're going to want to go. I promise you. So whether you're here for personal healing or to create safer, more equitable spaces for others, you're going to walk away with ideas you can use right away. So let's get started, my friends.
Step out of the shadows, feel the power rise, catch the spark inside you, let your spirit fly. Beyond the chronic burnout, Carole Jean's your guide. Find your steady rhythm, nice joy on the tide. Flourish forward, bright and bold. Leave the burnout far behind. In this journey, hearts unfold. Power's yours, seek and find.
Welcome to the show, Dutch. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I am glad to be here.
We always have fun when we chat.
Yes, they're always interesting.
Yeah. I love how you say that.
I was saying,
damn it.
Yeah, I was just saying that I teach philosophy and rarely am I challenged in a conversation. I remember one of the first one-on-ones we had, and I just was floored with that closing question and just thinking, holy, what just happened? But it was amazing. So yes, interesting is, definitely a positive.
I love it. There's so many things that we have to talk about. I mean, there's so many opportunities for things to dive into. Like, I am a huge fan of your nachos show. It's like every time I can catch it in the mornings, it is just like the most fun way to start my day. I always have a blast.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a great time putting it on.
I mean, you can tell you do. And it's really, and the topics of conversation are just the things that we need to be talking about more. And one of those things I think we really need to be talking about more is your peanut butter and jelly framework. So I love this. I mean, it is so unique. It's memorable. It's fun. It helps to approach neuroinclusion in a really affirming way. So can you walk us through what it is and how it can help leaders, educators, and even families create spaces where neurodivergent people don't just survive, but we're like flourishing and we're driving the car. We're not like running behind it.
Yeah, thank you. And that is the important thing, the thriving. And one of the things that I do with my classes as a teacher, with my podcast, with the community spaces that we build with Humanities 101 and Nachos, is constantly remind the collective humanity, that we are curious beings, that what allows us to thrive as a collective species is our curiosity. And so I throw all of the various stories that throw everything on its head, right? From physics to, to biology to neuroinclusion. But part of that curiosity is, how do we connect and how do we communicate with those around us, right? And that curiosity of focusing on the needs, the wants, and the desires of not only those around us, but ourselves. Because, I focus a lot in Nachos on self-care. So the PB&J framework is not so much a step-by-step process. It's a relational ethic. I kind of think of it as a cycle. And as a writing teacher, we talk about the writing process, and we say, well, when you start, you draft, and then you revise, and then you edit, and then you might have to go back to the planning phase, and then you might skip back to editing. And I really see the PB&J framework as that, because often we might have two of the three things we need to survive and thrive. Whereas those two can make up for that lack of the one. So this is where the PB&J framework comes in, and it stands fairly simply, not just for peanut butter and jelly, which again is one of those care tasks that we do for others, but it's predictability, balance, and joy. And within those three things, within these ideas, we have all of the various components of basic human communication. Those things that if you look back to when we were in caves using hand signs, we did so through curiosity. We did so through care and through a back and forth. And so that is where that relational ethic kind of comes in. And it's sometimes hard for us, especially in the United States, especially in the West, to not want to look at it as a line. Because even when we talk about neurodivergence and we talk about spectrums and we still see lines. We still see ending points. We still see sharp edges and corners to turn. And there are no corners in a circle. It is one big corner, right? And I'm often told as a teacher, there are two sides to every story. And I always say, no, it's a sphere. There are 360 and then some, right? And so when we looked at the idea of predictability, balance, and joy, those are the things that I think all of us would want in our lives. And again, deceptively simple. But when we're talking about neurodivergence, it is balancing the needs of others with the needs of ourselves. It is balancing the need to have the laundry done with the need to rest, the need, right, to rest, which a lot of people look at it as a luxury. And again,
well, we could dive in on that one,
right? I mean, those hard kind of edge, reward and punishment ideas, right? And so the idea of balance, and I think of cooking, right? The sweet, the sour, the give and take. And if you live in a binary thinking world, which, somebody like myself who's autistic does, not force myself, but to allow myself to not have to think either or, to allow myself the freedom of a both and. And so when we are looking at, PB&J, right? I always start with the peanut butter, predictability and balance, because that's the foundation of the sandwich, right? The bread, right, being the first thing, that balance, right, that holds everything together. Now, predictability, if we think about neurodivergence, that predictability aspect is one of those things that a lot of us crave or we avoid, depending on which flavor we are of neurodivergent. But understanding if we've got the bread, if we've got the balance, right, we can understand that we can give and take. We can read the situation. We can read the behavior as communication, not just the words. We can read the signs as well, balancing both verbal and nonverbal, and really start to build sustenance. And that's why it's all a bread metaphor. And I know, I talk about this a lot, but food, that's why it's nachos, the podcast. Food is that unifying force as humans. and the thing that allowed us to become human, right? That allowed us to evolve and that brings us together. Um, and so when we look at that substance of predictability, and some of that as well requires us to have patience, pause, right? All of these P words that I just can't help because the alliteration. But my brain thinks about that basically on those two alone, balance and predictability, right? I could survive. I could survive on peanut butter alone, but it's the jelly. That's what makes it special. And so that's where the joy comes in. And that's where presence and just being in the moment comes in, where we often don't think that because maybe neurodivergent joy doesn't present the way that neurotypical joy does, that some of us are capable of joy. When I go to concerts, even though if you see me in social media and there's music, I will be moving, right? I will be dancing. I have auxiliary percussion right beside my desk here. I'm not lying. And I like to move, but when I go to a concert full of people who are moving and the music, my joy presents as focus. Nothing but me and the artist. Everything else disappears, and I stand there still, feeling the thump of the music, and everyone thinks he's not enjoying himself. That to me is such a joyful moment, but I'm not performing it for everyone, and I don't now, because I go to concerts with people who understand. They balance their needs with my needs, right? We constantly are working on the idea of PB&J, and in life, it is something that, again, I didn't invent or discover. It's always been there. I just renamed it, just defined it as academics do. I put a little needle in it and said, "Ooh, this is important." Even though everyone else is overlooking it, this is important. When I've traveled, when I've explored different cultures, food and tables have always been the best teachers beyond the classroom and the language models and everything else. It's always been the humans. And even when I didn't speak the language in some of these places, we were able to communicate because of that curiosity, because of that need to understand that moment of feeding and caring. Simple, basic, but so
Yeah.
revolutionary in the 21st century.
I mean, seriously. And I love that approach and, to kind of think about it that way. Really, when we come together, where we connect the deepest, where we hear other people's perspectives, or we maybe discover something new, it's always around the table with
Yeah.
food.
And it is, and I know I show love through care. I do tasks for people. I present gifts like a puppy and say, "Here, I found this in the backyard for you." Um, and so when I was building or kind of building out this definition, really, I wanted it, as a teacher would, I wanted it to be something that would reinforce itself. And I thought about, it needed to be every day. It needed to be commonplace. It needed to be, oh my gosh, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Why do they always taste better when someone else same peanut butter, same bread, same, it could be measured out, but there's a magic to that other person making the peanut butter. And then I also thought, as both someone who is neurodivergent and someone who cares for multiple people who are neurodivergent, that the self-care of caring for others, and to remind myself of that while I'm making a sandwich for someone else. So while I'm spreading the peanut butter for my child or my wife, I remember, give yourself balance. Does this bring you joy? We'll celebrate the joy in this moment, what you're doing, because, as I often did as a neurodivergent person, when I present the gift and they don't script the way that I was taught that one should script after a gift, I get upset. What did I do wrong? No. The joy is in giving, period. Right? Making the gift, doing it. And I don't even want to be around if you're eating it. Like, that's fine. And this is coming from a former professional chef who used to just sit and go, "Well, how's the food tonight? Please gush. Please gush. Tell me how wonderful I am." But I don't, now it's about the act of caring more so than the feeling of having cared.
that's something that sometimes we get caught up in, and it's always seeking this external place of joy, and it's interesting because I had this wonderful mentor many years ago. And I remember in one of the conversations we were having, she said, happiness will always keep you miserable when you're seeking it. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. What are you talking about? Like, my whole world to that point had been, I just want to be happy, right? And all of the things. And she goes, no. That's conditional. It's based on everything that's happening externally. She said, but joy? Joy is different. It's like the jelly, like you talk about. It's that sweet thing. It's something that's already ours. It doesn't have to be earned. There's not conditions on it. It is a state of being, and it's a choice.
100%, a state of being, and may I even say a state of becoming, constantly becoming, right? And so it's a no corner, no end, constant becoming. But yeah, it is. Joy is. It is elusive. It's Greek perfection, right? I mean, the Greeks said, "Here's perfection. You'll never reach it, but always strive for it." But I think there's some freedom in that, in knowing that joy cannot be external. It can only be internal, and knowing that you cannot get to a place where nothing bothers you. You get to a place where you say, okay, that does bother me, and I'm okay with it bothering me. Right. And then, and not compartmentalizing, not shoving it in a box under the bed or something for later, but and it's elusive, I think. But they say that it's attainable. They say that we can get there one day. And I've read them all. I've studied religion, philosophy. I was trying to figure it out, and none of them had any answers.
No, they don't. They just have way more questions. And I think that's really sort of the beautiful thing, at least it has been on my end. And it is just simply that when I'm upset about something, when I'm bothered by something, I really just started to check in with, it's because I care about this, because it's aligned with my values. It's important to me. And therefore, it bothers me if it's, not whatever.
Yes. And I think that's where, right, if you believe what you were saying about joy, and I believe that too, that it shines from inside out rather than outside in. Well, if your light's off and you're shining it out, right, you're gonna get that back. And my mother always used to say that, and I always thought that's weird. But then I read the philosophy, and then I read the books, and I started going, oh my gosh, they're saying the same thing she is. They're saying the same thing Mama always said. Because it's, like I said, deceptively simple. I think sometimes we want it to be hard. We need it because, like you said, it's so elusive. Right. It's something, and so, well, of course I would have gotten it already if it were so easy to get.
Oh, there's just so much that we can unpack in that. And it's like, we need a whole nother episode for it. But there's this place of, within my work and research, when you talk about the presence in the PB&J, predictability, all of those things, that is the fourth root of an optimum steady state. And it is predictability, structure, order, routine. Yep. And it was interesting because in my research, when we pressure tested this with our participants, we looked at how does that order, structure, predictability show up with you externally in your environment, but how does it show up for you internally when those things are disrupted? And this was the only one out of the top 5 where it was equally important to have internal and external.
Yeah.
Right? And it just seems like you said, it's like, oh, well, that's just so obvious, right? But how often do we think about that? And it's in the same way with joy, that external versus internal, because number 5 root to an optimum steady state is play, joy, and laughter. And it was interesting because when we looked at it from that conscious perspective, it was number 1. 83.3% of respondents said, oh, this is why I'm burnt the heck out. I don't have play, joy, and laughter.
Yep.
And then when we did it from the unconscious somatic perspective and we pressure tested it, it was, oh, play, joy, and laughter, but it's number 5. There were some other things that were heavier drains on our energy or that really boosted us. What was interesting was that's just simply was telling us that even on an unconscious level, our physical body is saying, I need joy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we took the parts and we said, okay, let's look at joy with other people. Let's look at joy with yourself. It was interesting because it was like, oh yeah, I really want the joy with myself. I want to be able to feel joy within myself and my own personal experience. But there's this extra sweetness when I can share that with someone else.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And when you were saying that, it made me think of George Bernard Shaw, right? We don't grow old. Wait, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing, right? And the idea that it really is, it reflects back. What we expect gets reflected back. And so if we cannot find, or if we can't tap into where we can find that joy, even if it's not presented as the way society or as others expect it to, it won't feed our body as joy when it's given to us. It just won't. And I know that, early on in my daughter's existence, music was dysregulating for her. And so I took that away from the situation, and I could have entered it back in, but again, habit and getting away from that sense of that place of joy, that place where I could, and even the internal jukebox started to kind of get unplugged. Right. And so even the internal music started, it was like the Footloose town. Nobody was allowed to dance. Nobody was allowed to listen to music. But that simple addition back into, and I had it in the car, and then I wondered, why, but that simple addition, it's so easy now with all of the various, earbuds and everything else. That simple addition has made such a difference because my body needed that. My brain needed that, and I dare say my soul needed it, because that's where the joy came and always does, is that rhythm, that movement, that music.
We have an exercise, and this wasn't my name. This was actually somebody else's in our Rapid Recharge Lab, and it's called Joy Moves. And it's just this quick hit of where you play the song that you just love, the thing that's on repeat, the thing that just really connects with you. And you play it in a way that you experience the vibrational resonance of this.
Yes.
Because that's our nervous system regulating.
Yes. 100%.
And it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is neuroscience, right? 100% neuroscience. It's been proven.
It totally is. And the reason that we bring in the PB&J framework to kick off this conversation is because when we're talking about burnout, we're talking about stress, we're talking about all the things that are heavy and hard and weighing us down. Dutch and I both approach this from a playful, fun perspective. He's got PB&J framework. I've got the spicy pepper quiz and scale. The reason that most of us have been in a long-term burnout experience is from the heavy, the hard, and the super serious. I was the most serious human in the whole wide world, because along the way, my joy, my autistic ADHD joy,
yes,
was reflected back to me going, that's too much. Can you tone that down? You cannot possibly be that happy. Right?
Right.
And so all of those things, it's kind of like you were talking about with the music. I unplugged my joy. And when we can tap into this PB&J framework, this really is sort of the gentle, loving, sweet, sticky, but sandwiched between two yummy pieces of my gluten-free bread.
Yep.
And this is just a really gentle way to begin looking at what nourishes you. And I love how you take this and you really look at it from this nourishing perspective. I always say, look, needs are about not I need something, we're moving to get it filled externally, but it's about What am I receiving that nourishes? And
Yes.
that's really such a difference. I mean, just the language, the way that it energetically feels when you say it in your body. I am undernourished versus I need that, because then it's like something that you will never attain feeling, right? And there's so many things that happen along the way like this. I love the juicy, yummy, sticky goodness of this PB&J framework, because when we're in burnout, and most of the time, I don't know about you, but I was like, before I knew all the stuff that I know today, a decade ago, I just thought I was failing in adulting and
Yep.
life sucked and it was really hard and I just wasn't figuring it out fast.
Yes. Yeah, I thought I was living in that old Dunkin's commercial where the guy was like, "Get up, go to work, go home, go to bed," and he was like, "Get up, make the donuts, go home, go to." And I like, yeah, I thought that's what you did. You went to work and you wanted to be home, and then when you went home, you wanted to be at work. But I didn't really like, because I didn't understand either, right? Because an adult home looked nothing like what I wanted it to look like, which obviously, right now is this. My office
Oh, mine
always looked
too.
this way, right? It always did at the college or wherever I taught. But I was never at home. And now, we lean into it all around as a family, because again, when the PB&J, and it's something that I started with, in small steps to implement in the house, but now we're rethinking even design of the kitchen. We're thinking, like my wife's like, well, let's take the cabinet doors off. Those make no sense. I'm ADHD. If I can see it, I know it's there. And I'm like, yes, let's take the
Object
cabinet,
permanence,
because
I
they
am
used
so
to
with
not
her.
exist. Right. There were no doors 100 years ago on the cabinets. They were open. That's why grandma had a curtain to hide the stuff that she didn't want to clean up.
I mean,
So,
really,
yeah.
I'll just embracing the things that actually support us
Work.
and nourish us.
Mm-hmm.
What I love though is, how you said, okay, this is how it used to be. This is what I experienced. This was the stuff that was heavy and hard. I mean, when you look back before you know what you know, what would you say was maybe the heaviest or hardest, or the belief that you held around who you were in the world?
It was probably based upon people's reflection, right? Of me as a funny fat guy, even though I was a kid. I mean, seriously, as a kid, it was the 80s. It was the late 70s, early 80s. So, I mean, what was considered fat? But I look back on those pictures as a kid and I think about the words that were said to me as a kid. Um, and the picture of that kid, and I'm going, who would have told that kid that they were fat? Like, that's just nuts. But then to lock it in that very autistic way of okay, well, that's right. And then to then reflect it back. And so, we're to the, and then when you couple that with, just with, with an, mouth stim propensity, I still am chewing on. I mean, my favorite stim now is the Starbucks coffee stirs. I jam that thing in my mouth all day. I'm chewing on it. I'm like, ah, ha, ha. Just like Grandpa and his toothpick. Like, I'm the mouth guy. Like, I would be a toothpick guy, but that's just weird. um, so
My
yeah,
uncle always said, you knew who paid for dinner because it's the man with the toothpick. Whoever had the toothpick.
Why was it always him with the paid? I like that. See, mind blown again. Sit down with Carole Jean, mind's blown, and it's about toothpicks. Holy jeez. No,
That was from my Uncle Bubba.
but hey, it doesn't matter. You passed it. You knew enough to know that it was a gem, right? Fool's gold versus real gold, right?
Total gem.
But I think that it is one of those things that when I look back, to allow other people to define for me, when I, when even though the stories reflected and said, and I know that I was teaching to others, don't let other people define you. And yet here I was being molded, chipped away at, almost like a big piece of a marble, till they were, this is what I expect. This is what you should be. Right.
Yeah.
And then my body literally rejecting the person that I had become. Like, I was sick. I wasn't good. Because the body knew.
Oh,
The body knew.
right?
I was under deep cover, like an FBI agent. I was undercover for 40 years, right? And the body was like, well, not 40, but 30 or so when I started masking as a teen. Um, and and the body knew, and it was like, you can't do this, kid. You can't run this marathon. You're going to give out sooner or later.
Yep, it really does. And there's so much that, oh, like that's so relatable. I don't know if anybody else out there is relating, but I'm relating pretty hard over here. Because that it truly is. And we're carrying the weight of all of those things that people are quote unquote reflecting back to us as to who we are. And it's like putting on a tight pair of blue jeans or the itchiest freaking top you have ever had, and then never being able to take it off.
Yes.
And it was so interesting because I think my body did something so very similar. And it was when I hit that point in my late 30s, early 40s, I was identified at 39 and 10 months. I knew I was ADHD, but I didn't know I was autistic. And that answered some things that just ADHD didn't answer. And it was like, it took me about 2 years to process that autistic identification. There was a lot there. And in the meantime, my body revolted. It literally stopped working. It shut down. I couldn't even lift my arm to feed myself. I was bedridden with 2 little kids. And it happened overnight because I was in hospital administration running 10 of the biggest departments. And 3 days later, I was incapacitated. It was that fast. And it's just unbelievable how, and I think that's the second phase of the research when we went to the unconscious and somatic approach to our nourishment. I think along that line is where we really, our wisdom held within ourselves. And there is such a huge, I almost call it like the chrysalis. It was this incubation of being able to process and integrate this new information because it was an identity crisis in so many ways. And I was like, wait a minute, who I thought I was isn't who I am, which means I believed a whole lot of crud for a very long time. I need to figure out who I am and what's real for me. And I know you had this really powerful post-identification transformation, and it's really rooted in what you just shared with us. Can you dive in, around your own transformation, that weight loss, your body really responding, what unfolded around your identification or shifted for you? What really, had you getting the clarity that you have today?
Well, it's funny that you had mentioned, it's like putting on a tight pair of jeans that somebody else gave you. I always explain to people that I've shed 200 pounds of clothes that other people made me wear. Because it was, for me, it was, it was a slow process. There were moments in my existence where, I fit the mold, but I never fit the mold, whatever the mold is at the time. And again, in the 80s, in the Top Gun Karate Kid era, because I've spoken with my parents, right? And they've said, we're so sorry that we pushed you guys to achieve. And my sister and I both said, absolutely not. We were in the 80s, you would have been, ludicrous not to push us in the world in which we existed, right? And for me, it was a slow distancing from myself. For me, it was when you start to when you put on that shirt of, okay, kid, that's not mature. Don't do that, right? And you put that on, and you do it sometimes, but you don't let people see you without that shirt on, right? You swim in it, you do all those other things, to continue on the metaphor, but and slowly but surely, my escape, my negative stim beyond chewing one's nails, right? Which, I'd get in trouble for. I get, pain, they'd put on the little thing so you wouldn't chew your nails, the little sour tasting, just like a puppy with chewing spray. Well,
that nail polish stuff was horrible.
Yeah, horrible. But I found other ways, and because of executive dysfunction in my later my later teens and college and stuff, and then that kind of, I was able to stim with whatever. And it wasn't that I ate a lot. It was that I was constantly chewing. When I cut with scissors, my mouth is moving. It is one of those things that it is one of those developmental issues that has always been there for me. Never been an issue for me, always an issue that someone else points out, right? Why does your mouth move like that when you're doing something with your hands? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, that's the only way I can type. Right. And for me, it's always been just a quirk. I know now the neuroscience behind it. I can connect, I can show you, but it doesn't matter because it was who I was and I allowed myself to get disconnected from it. And so it's really been for me, post-identification and understanding I was, seeking both sensory seeking and sensory avoiding, right? And so I was seeking both that stimulation and then that absolute destruction afterwards, that pain. Oh, I feel horrible. That's good because you should, right? That self-destructive kind of thing. And it wasn't through promiscuity or other negative action. It was food and bad social skills, right? It was up in the middle of the night. I prided myself on being the guy who could be up the latest and up first. Stay up latest, up, down last, up first, that kind of thing. And that is not sustainable. That was something that was given because I look back on that time and I look back on the people that there's a movie Dream, the actors that would play you that someone else casted, it would be the Belushis and the Candys and the Farleys and all of that stuff, right? That's where they put me. Because I didn't fit. And so I was kind of funny. I understood language. I was witty and I had temper issues because of dysregulation and da-da-da-da-da. So I kept putting on the shirts and putting on the sweatshirts and putting it on, till at, I don't know, 40. I'm pushing 500 pounds. I'm in a cardiologist's office. And they're saying, "Oh, you're having an event." They wouldn't say what an event was. Still didn't, but just by circumstance, there happened to have been an intern or something in that day with the old cardiologist in an old blue collar town who's just used to serving old hearts. Dude, we have Polish food and donuts around here in an auto line. What are you talking about, right? Hey, hearts, I just come in here for maintenance. We don't want to do anything preventative. I know you're going to eat the kielbasa, kid. And so the intern turned around, though, and came in and said, you shouldn't have, one, I shouldn't be telling you this, but two, you shouldn't have had that big of a swing without some kind of chemical intervention. Like, we didn't give you a shot and your numbers went down like that. That was not physiological. He knew enough to come back in and go, you shouldn't be at a cardiologist. You need to seek other help, right? And so I called my doctor driving from Flint south to go to my doctor, about 20 minutes. And they said, we can take you on an emergency appointment. So I go in, tears streaming down my face. I'm literally just come from the cardiologist they were going to hold me there. Because if my numbers didn't get down, they were going to admit me to the hospital. Something was going on. And I go in, tears streaming down my face, and I say, I believe now, based upon everything that's going on with my kid and everything that I know as an educator, I would like to be tested for autism. And she looked at me and she said, lose 20 pounds and we'll talk about it. Tears streaming down my face, full meltdown. And her response was, lose 20 pounds and we'll talk about it. I walked out of there and never went back.
Wow.
And yes. I walked out of there and never went back, partially not only for myself, but for that doctor, because if my wife would have escorted me there, it wouldn't have been good for the doctor.
Ooh.
I mean, she's a high school teacher. She would have wagged the finger. There would have been a whole talking to. It would not have been good. There would have been homework probably. But
Oh,
yes,
there have been more than that.
yeah. Oh, I know. But yeah, it was gut wrenching. And it was, but luckily my persistent drive for autonomy kicked in, and I was like, oh, heck no. Wiping my face as I'm leaving there, and I was like, I will go. I will spend my last dime, and I will come back in here with that piece of paper, and I will jam it in your face. I don't care to now. Don't even remember that doctor's name, which I think is a bigger win than taking that paper back and jamming it in her face. 10 years ago, me would have thought that was a win. But me now, I know that I know better. And not even remembering her name, just like Joy, it just popped up one day and it go, oh, you're so inconsequential. I forgot about you. You have no power over me, Goblin King.
I'm like, delete, block, it is gone out of my brain. It does not matter. It's inconsequential to my world.
Yes.
How did the transformation, like what was the linchpin? What was the thing, like the catalyst, the thing that you really, when you got the piece of paper, when somebody just confirmed what you had already been suspecting, right, and went, yep, dude, you're so autistic. You are autistic all day long. You have always been autistic. This is not something new. This is going to be, you are autistic to the day you die. This is you. What happened with your body and your mind?
It opened the door to curiosity. Like you said, who the heck am I then? Who the heck am I then? What do I like? Do I like driving? Do I like taking road trips? Do I like that type of music? Am I a talkative? Am I a morning person? I mean, I used to jump out of bed in my boots. Like I was the kid. It was, hello, everybody. It's good morning. Good to see you. I've now realized post-identification, I need about a half hour of quiet. Stuff's going through my brain, and I can do that if I need to. But that's not the default me. The default me is let's have some peace and quiet for about a half an hour. Let my engine warm up. I can go, but it's not good for longevity, right? I can do that. I can cold start, but I'd rather warm up a little bit. And so it's really been opening that door to curiosity, which then was like, well, wait a minute. Well, if I stim with my mouth, what about this habit of smoking? Oh, well, what about this eating? Oh, and when that started to be addressed, then there were other interventions, right? That my doctors were like, well, then you're losing weight, kid. Why don't you why don't we sign you up for this? And why don't we sign you up for that? And why don't you go to a dietitian now? At that point, it wasn't lose 20 pounds. I wasn't doing it for that. It was curiosity. It was like, ooh, I wonder. And I remember, again, post-identification, I begged the University of Michigan. I was like, I need a referral for occupational therapy. And they're like, why? And I was like, because it did wonders for my daughter. They are the best with autists. I am all for it. They were like, we don't have anything like that here. Again, one of the best hospitals in the country. And I luckily had an OT that I met up with who was like, well, let's try some stuff. Let's throw some eggs on the wall and see what happens. She's like, I can write you in for 3 sessions. And then the insurance is going to come back and say, you're an adult. You don't get that therapy. She was like, so let's try EMDR. Let's try this. Let's try that. And so I'd sit in there for an hour and a half and I was like, just guinea pig me. And there was one time I'm on a treadmill and I'm doing this EMDR thing. And she's like, you look like you're going to vomit. And I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm going to vomit. She was like, okay, this will work for you. Let's turn this one off and move to the next therapy then. Because we were literally just trying to see how many different ones I reacted to so that later I could then take it upon myself to check out the therapies because the infrastructure is not there. So the curiosity and the opening that door and then finding other people who would experiment with me, right? Would try and go, well, what is that? That toy, that fidget, that new stim. And so now I'm the one in the Walmart toy aisle checking out the new stuff. And yeah, I mean, like I've got Nidos on speed dial, man.
Oh,
I mean,
seriously, in every color and texture. Like I've got this one that's a little more dense. Oh yeah, look at you
I've
and your
got the Nido
cubes
snowman,
sizes.
right? Like, yeah,
Ooh, I'm
I love
jealous. I
them.
need two more.
Me and
I
Toy
only
Story.
have the bottom. But that's what I love though. And this is a consistent revelation and conversation on this show around how we get curious and how we want to play and explore. It really, and that is a joyful expression. And I think somebody was the like, play, exploration, research, just guinea pig me. Let's just see what this does. Because I've never allowed myself. I've never asked. It never mattered if I liked something or not. I was going to
Yes.
knuckle down and do whatever somebody said I was supposed to do. And what's interesting, and this is how I come at curiosity, because we can come at curiosity with like this harsh, judgy part. But for us, I say we come at curiosity with compassionate curiosity. We do it playfully. We do it just without the judge. We just are wondering what'll happen.
Yeah. And but see, and I think if you have any kind of judge or any kind of preconceived bias or anything, it's not curiosity. It might be experimentation, it might be exploration, but it isn't curiosity, because curiosity is wonder. It's awe. It is it's dumbfounding, right? You have to be like, I've never, like, it has to smack you a bit, and it has to, I hate to say it, but it has to, in academic sense, has to make you feel small. It has to make you feel smaller than what you're seeing. And you have to go, whoa, wow.
It's like Horton hears a who in the dust speck.
Yes, right? It pulls aside. And I call it kind of fractal thinking, because I think of it like Dr. Strange. Yeah. Where he gets in that kind of fractal world. But when my thinking goes like that, and I can see all of the instances when that has happened, like post-identification, where you're like, oh, and all the dominoes fall in line. You're like,
right?
When I misread.
And you have like the movie picture that's flashing all of the images.
Yes, 100%. So yeah, fractal
it's like
thinking,
9,000 miles an hour.
Yes.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it just puts everything in perspective in a weird, and my good friend at Rutgers said this, the most life-changing nothing that would ever happen to me. And it really was the most life-changing nothing. Nothing changed. Truly... Just my understanding of me, period. And then the whole world changed color. Everybody's, and so I'm going to chase that feeling for the rest of my life, because that has to be. I've lived almost a half a century now. I've got maybe a half a century left. It's time to be curious.
Oh, it is past time to be curious. I mean, I'm 51. I plan on living to at least 105. That's like my minimum.
No, I'm down. I'm down.
I'm just like, anything I need to do, just because there is such awe and wonderment in the world to me. In this place of compassion, and joy, playfulness, right? So I know that you have taken all of the things that you've done in your life, your experiences, the amazing work that you do, your students, and just the advocacy that you have. And you have this amazing, fabulous conference you have put together that's coming up in October on neurodivergent empowerment. And it's going to be in Dearborn, Michigan. And I'm so excited. What was the spark for this one? What was the spark in your heart? What was the sparkling like whiz pop that you went, whoa, we have to do this?
I was sitting at a table with a former student who's now a medical student, and they were interviewing me just and again, they said it was a podcast. I think it was more of a research project and stuff. And they've got this nonprofit in Dearborn, and they're like, we raise money for disabled people, abroad and in this, in this community because of our family connection and our interest in medicine and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, well, you ever thought about putting on a conference? I mean, I like events, education. I was like, I work at the college. And they obviously they knew that because, former student. And I thought it'd be interesting for future doctors to understand how maybe hard it is to organize something from the disability perspective. And they're finding that out. They're finding out, venues that are supposed to, based on let's say they may work at a certain place and they say, well, for our employees, these venues are free. And then they go to apply and they're getting, well, you got to pay $4,000 for the venue. And they're like, why would people do? I said, well, we put disability in there. We put neurodiversity in there. We put the words that the system says, no, 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 red flag, right? And so I wanted them a little bit to experience that, but I also wanted to try to set up a network where we could learn how to get around that system and learn how to work within that system to make things better
That's
for
not
ourselves.
autistic of you
Right?
at all.
Yeah, not find the crack in the system and then go, okay, I'm going to pick at that until it opens up. And so I've been working. It's going to be a one-day conference. We have lived experience panels, expert panels. The way I kind of considered it was I have been to lots of self-advocacy events. And I don't like the idea that we only advocate for ourselves, because I'm not only advocating for myself. I call, the human rights advocates more so than self-advocates. Academic conferences, workshops, and they've all been very siloed. And rarely in these situations do nary the tween, come tween, right? And academically, I was at an academic conference, I was at a business conference, and I was talking about my academic work, and somebody asked me, well, what's the business model in that? And I was like, a research paper? Like, what, huh? Right? And so the idea is I want to put these disparate people in a room together. I want them to hear from each other. So we have lived experience panels. We have how-to workshops, how to calm down, how to regain energy. How do I know if maybe I'm neurodivergent, right? So we've got experts coming to speak on that. We have people talking about traveling as a disabled person or neurodivergent person. And then we've also got community resources, right? And what I would like to do, or what I'm doing with my students, an innovation fair. So we have, I am big on universal design, but rebranded as micro-accommodation, because universal design is expensive, but micro is very cheap. And so for less than $300, students will be presenting kind of almost like in a science fair, Shark Tank style, innovations that they kind of come up with under $300 that benefit more than 300 people. So the idea is, right?
I love this.
Right. So the idea is, let's see how much bang we can get for this buck, right? Because we know that there's money in it in the long run. I mean, all you have to do is go to Target and buy an OXO spatula, and you know that accessibility is popular.
Okay, wait a minute. We got to pause for just like 2 seconds, because I never knew how to pronounce that. I just called it XO,
I don't know
XO,
if that's
OXO.
I don't take me as the authority. Like that.
I will always call it OXO from now on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it just made sense to my brain. So
Makes sense to my brain now, because I was like, what is that? Okay, so tell us, like, these are fantastic. These are fabulous segments within this conference. Who is this conference for? Like, who should be attending? Who needs to go get their ticket, pack their bag, and show up?
Obviously, people within the community, within the neurodivergent and disability community, but we are inviting educators. We are inviting politicians, policymakers. We're inviting, we are trying to get, and it is really geared towards our community and those who support us. But we don't need to preach to the choir. We can support ourselves while educating them on some other things. And so the idea is, again, get a big enough table. If you build it, they will come. And so we're doing it on the cheap. I'm only asking for a $5 registration. That's just to make sure that people show up, right? Because, hosting an event, when they start charging $40 a person for catering and stuff, no, I will fundraise for that. Like, let's make this happen, because that is the other thing with universal design, is often it's open to everyone if you can afford it, if you can be there. And so in a classic universal design sense, we haven't finalized the venue, but tomorrow morning I'll know for sure. We hopefully, and it is right across from both a 4-star and a 2-star hotel. And I said, wow, universal design, perfect. You want to be bougie? Go be bougie. You want to be on the cheap? $60 versus $300. We're good, right? And because again,
left the light on.
exactly. The more that we can, the more people that we can get in there, because again, preaching to the choir is one thing, but we need converts to the idea that humans became humans because we took care of each other. I mean, we would not have evolved had people back at the cave not had organ meat too, right? And so there came a time in our primitive existence where eventually we started caring for people who couldn't care for themselves. And as one of my friends always says, the first representation of humanity is not cave paintings; it's the first healed femur. When you see that first healed femur bone in a grave, that's when you know that was humanity and not animal nature. And I got goosebumps just thinking about it because I separate the two. There's a human nature and there's an animal nature. And our human nature is there's no normal. There's no right. There just is.
I think that's really hard for a lot of arounds, but it seems to be something that we in our community sit with uncomfortably comfortable.
We have to, right?
And I think that's part of it. We've had to, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've counseled a lot of people recently. I do coaching and a bunch of other stuff, and people talk to me about all the, social things and political things and all these other stuff. And I say, look, the world hasn't changed for us. It's chaos and unpredictable, and we're constantly in the fight or flight anyway. Like, we should have some schadenfreude and look around and go, look at them freaking out. Like, they're just new here. They're new to fight or flight, but we live here all the time. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. I'm getting a little bit of misery loves company. No, just kidding.
Oh, I love this. So this conference is open to anybody. This
Open
just spoke to you,
anybody
this
and
called you.
everyone.
You're excited.
Yes.
And,
and
hey,
the
if you
plans
want to
are
book a ticket and show up for the day, for the weekend, however this works.
And that is the plan. The conference is on Friday, October 24th. It goes from 9 till 4. But after the conference, for people that are around in the area, we're going to try to get a small group. If there are groups that going, there's the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village, and they have their Halloween weekends. So it's a kind of, think Colonial Williamsburg, but Henry Ford, Thomas Edison era. And so you can go and trick or treat at the Wright Brothers, shop and Edison's workshop and go all that stuff. But I really want to, if again, this idea is building out not just these networks, but a community. I know I've got a lot of people traveling around to come to the conference because of my various social media things. And I'm like, I'm going to make it worth your while, guys. Let's have fun. Let's have some joy.
Let's have a little jelly with our day, can we?
Exactly. We'll get some PB. Well, at the conference, we can talk all the PB we want. After the conference, it's J all day, baby.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. I love it. I want to bring this to a close because, oh my gosh, you and I could talk forever. We're probably going to have to do a couple more episodes because there's some stuff we need to go deep on this conversation for sure. I always love to close the show and really just invite you to share from your perspective because, I always feel like there's that one piece of insider advice that someone who's just starting to sort of see their burnout and maybe what recovery is possible. Because a lot of times we're told, oh, it's just not possible. You just have to suck it up, buttercup. This is just how you're going to have to live life because you're on ADHD. And I have already said that that's not the case. I refuse to believe that. And I've been burnout free since November of 2019, and it has changed my life. But I'd love to know just that one piece of advice, the inclusion as connectedness, right? What would you want somebody to know? Maybe it's just coming to this knowledge right now. From your heart to theirs.
I mean, the biggest thing that I always come back to is the idea that you, you can't be fixed because you're not broken. You're not broken. And so when people pathologize and when people talk about how we can make you better and how you can, no, so yeah, I would really start at that, and know that um we were all there, and we'll all be there again, because as we said, this isn't a straight line. But yeah, there's nothing to fix because you're not broken.
Oh, that is powerful, and that is life-giving. That is joyful to not just hear it, not just believe it, to embody that. Thank you so much, Dutch.
Thank you.
Oh, this is great. Oh my gosh. I can't thank Dutch enough for the rich and real conversation that we just had. I mean, he's given us so much to think about and to put into practice. So, if today's episode has you thinking about your own burnout level and how to start recovering, I invite you to take our spicy pepper burnout quiz at whittingtonwellbeing.com. It's a quick, insightful way to see where you are right now so you can take the next steps with clarity. And if you want ongoing tools and support, sign up for our Recharge Library Plus newsletter at energize.whittingtonwellbeing.com. You'll get instant access to free resources from the show, our clinical companion toolkit, early access to articles, and practical tools you can use in your own life or in client sessions. Because burnout recovery isn't just about getting back to okay. It's about building a life where your energy, your joy, and your brilliance feel safe and sustainable. Until next time, take good care of yourself, my beautiful sparkle. You are worth it.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. Top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week, where the energy's strong. Beyond Chronic